Hey developers! Today we're going to talk about Vue.js and using dynamic components. So there might be times when you create Vue.js applications and you need to quickly switch between different components in your app. Vue.js has a very simple way of doing this. We're also going to take a look at slots, and if you stay all the way to the end, I'll have a special offer for you, but listen closely, it'll be awesome. Let's begin. Hey, before we begin, let me just remind you guys that Udemy is having a $12 sale. It's really cheap. I have some of my favorite courses listed below inside the description box. So check that out if you're looking to level up on web development. And also my book, Vue.js in Action, is in early access. If you want to get the first chapter for free, there's a link below and it has some information about it and also where you can go and buy it. So that's pretty awesome. So let me show you an example. I have a really simple example here. You can see here my Atom editor here. I have all the code for this example and I'll go through it line by line. And then on the right hand side, you'll see this is kind of the end product. So I have this something that says book component here. If you click the cycle button, it switches between book, form, header, and these are just different components, and I just have a action set to the cycle. So this is actually really simple to do. So I went ahead and created a real basic Vue.js application. You can see here I have a doc type at the top, I have an HTML header. I have my script tag. This is the Vue script, so it's just being included in here, and this is actually the developer version, so we can see errors and stuff in the console. We have a body tag, and then like all good Vue.js apps, we have a div ID here, and this is where we're going to put in our Vue information. So we have it inside this div ID equals app, and I'll show you later on in the Vue constructor of how that is assigned. And then what we want to do is we have this button here, and it has an @ click, and so what that does is it binds the click event to cycle. So every time you press this button, the click button is pressed and the cycle is instantiated or created or pressed, I should say. This is actually the same as if you went in and put in a V on. That's the exact same thing. So if I save this and then I refresh this and I hit it, you see it does the same thing. So instead of using V on everywhere, we'll do this @ symbol and we'll save it, and it does essentially the same thing. And then here is the one way we can do it. So we have this component tag, and this is a special tag that Vue.js understands. And when it sees this, it knows that whatever is on this is attribute will be the component it uses. So right now we have it set to current view, and then we closing the tag. Of course, we can have a self-closing tag depending on if the browser. So if I do a self-closing tag here, we can look in the console, probably see it here. We're not getting any errors. I'll make this a little bigger. And it still works the same way, so there's no problem there. And so inside right here we have our script tags. Inside the script tags is where we have our code. So what I did is I have three templates here. One is called, or three components here. One is called book component. All it has is a template. Inside the template it has a div and then the name of the component. We have a form component, which is the same thing. We have this div tag and we have a form component here. And then we have a header component, and then we have a div tag that says header component. It's just really simple, doesn't have anything fancy. We just have these the name of the component inside there. And you might see here we have these little backticks right here. And what this tells is that this is actually an ES6 feature where we're doing string interpolation. So we don't have to worry about, so the other way you could do this, if you would have something like template, and then you would have the div tag, and then you have an ending div tag, and then you would have to like escape if you had multiple lines, like here. Let's see here. If you had multiple lines, you would have to like put little slashes to escape it, if I can press the right key. So you don't have to do any of that because we're using this string interpolation with these little backticks. which is perfect for us. Now, here at the bottom is where we do new view, and this tells it to create a new Vue.js instance. And this EL attribute or property here, this corresponds to where the entry point will be in the Vue.js app. So we put, and it's the same thing as like a CSS selector. So we had pound app, which means it's going to look for the app ID. I mean, we could have had like a class here. I guess we could have had class equals app. So if we do this and we reload it, you see nothing. It says it can't find element app. But if we went back down here and we change the pounds to a dot, recycle it, then it works again. So it's just like just like a CSS selector. And then components, this is where we define all the components we have in our app. And there's a few ways to do this, but we're saying book component is going to be where it's going to be assigned to book component. That's that constant we created earlier. Form components being form component, and header component is going to be in header component. So that's really simple. And you saw here, here's current view. And if we look back up here, it says component is current view. So it's looking for whatever's in current view. And it's going to look for basically current view set to book component, which is our constant global variable here called book component. So it's basically this template is the one that's going to show for the component on when it first renders. So if we refresh this, book component is the first one. And then we have this method we set up before, like I said, the cycle with the v-on. And we can see here we have this.currentView equals header component. So if it's header component, it switches it to book component. Else, and this isn't very elegant, but this is just really quick and simple. Otherwise, we check to see if it's book component. If it is, we change it to form component. If not, it goes to header component. So that's just a quick way to cycle through all three of them. So when we click it, now it's going form component, and then it goes to header component, and then this first if triggers when you hit it again, it goes back to book component. So it just cycles through all three. But you can see this is a lot simpler than if you had to do, I mean, the other way to do this is we would have to like create some kind of like div tag and then have a vif and then have some variable, and then we would have like a else velse as well, and that would have been not as nice, and then we would have to keep track of a variable. So yeah, it's not as elegant as just putting in this little is attribute with component and then being able to cycle through all three, which makes it really, really simple. So that is how you do dynamic components. So real quickly, I just wanted to show you one more example. So here is the slots from slots example. And by the way, all these examples are talked about in detail in my book, in the Vue.js in Action book. Like I said, if you guys are interested in Vue.js, I would highly recommend to go pick it up. It's pretty cheap. You can buy it in early access. I have 5 chapters in, but I'm adding one every month. So if I go to the slot example here, this is really simple. So we have, this is called a name slot. So we have something called Erik here. So here's the same kind of 5 normal lines you always see with the header tags and the source. And here's our entry point for app. And then we have this my component. And then inside this my component, we have, here's the definition of my component right down here. Here's the template. And it says hello from component. And then where it says slot name equals Erik slot, this is where this, so normally when you have components and you have slots, the information of it isn't seen unless you use this slot attribute, which is something special that Vue.js knows about. So what this is saying is look for this h3 tag, look for this slot, this line right here, and insert it in to where the slot name is here and Erik down here. So that's why we see hello from component, text from Erik, and then more stuff. So that's the bottom here. But let's say we brought this down one more and saved it. Now we should expect when we refresh it that the text from Erik will be below the more stuff. So there it is. So text from Erik now is below more stuff because we moved the slot. So we can use this slot to take information we pass into the component and then display it inside of it. So this is really useful when we start constructing more complicated components and we need to have different information that the parent has, and we don't necessarily want to use props and pass it down, but we want it to show it inside the component. So that is 2 quick examples. Both of these are in chapter 7 of my book. So thank you for listening and watching. And for those who stayed all the way to the end, if you leave a comment below, actually what I'll do, we'll do this to make it a little different than the last time. I have a little sign up button. I'll leave a link below to get the first chapter in my Vue.js in action book. It signs you up for my mailing list, which I occasionally email about once a week or every other week with some of the stuff I'm doing. If you sign up for my email list and in the next week, probably I will pick one winner and I will give you a free copy of my Vue.js in action book. It's a free ebook copy. And so you can learn Vue.js. So sign up for the mailing list, and I will keep track of who signs up in the next week. Thank you for watching. Take care. Oh yeah, please, before I go, please click that subscribe button. That really helps me. And also share this video if you like it. Thanks.